Aria stared out the window of her small apartment, watching raindrops race down the glass. Another dreary day in the city. She sighed and turned back to her laptop, trying to focus on work, but her mind kept wandering. At 32, Aria felt stuck in a rut. Same boring job, same lonely apartment, same uneventful weekends. Where was the excitement, the passion she'd always dreamed her life would have? A notification popped up on her phone. Her best friend Zoe was texting her about plans for the weekend. "Come out with us tomorrow night. New club opening downtown. Time to let loose." Aria hesitated. Clubs weren't really her scene anymore. But maybe Zoe was right. She needed to shake things up, get out of her comfort zone. "Okay, I'm in," she replied. "Pick me up at 9. The next evening, Aria stood in front of her closet at a loss. What did one even wear to a club these days? She finally settled on a slinky black dress she hadn't worn in years. Might as well go all out, she thought. When Zoe arrived to pick her up, she whistled appreciatively. "Damn girl, look at you. Samuel won't know what hit him." Aria froze. "Samuel? Who's Samuel?" Zoe grinned mischievously. "Oh, did I forget to mention? I invited my coworker Samuel to join us. He's new in town and super cute. I think you two would really hit it off." Aria groaned internally. Great, another awkward setup. Zoe was always trying to play matchmaker. But she plastered on a smile and climbed into the car. No backing out now. The club was packed and pulsing with energy when they arrived. Aria felt overwhelmed by the flashing lights and pounding music. She trailed behind Zoe as they made their way to the bar, already regretting her decision to come. "There he is!" Zoe shouted over the music, waving to someone in the crowd. A tall man with tousled dark hair made his way over to them. Aria's breath caught in her throat as he came into view. Zoe wasn't kidding. He was gorgeous. "Ladies, so glad you could make it," he said with a charming smile. His eyes landed on Aria and lingered. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Samuel." "Aria," she managed to reply, hoping the dim lighting hid her flushed cheeks. They chatted for a while at the bar, Samuel proving to be funny and engaging. Aria found herself relaxing and actually enjoying herself. When Zoe dragged them out to the dance floor, Aria didn't even protest. As they danced, Samuel leaned in close to be heard over the music. "I have to admit, Zoe's been talking you up all week. I was a little nervous to meet you." Aria raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? And am I living up to the hype?" Samuel's eyes sparkled. "Exceeding it, actually." The rest of the night passed in a blur of dancing, laughter, and flirtatious banter. By the time they left the club in the early hours of the morning, Aria felt giddy and alive in a way she hadn't in years. As they said their goodbyes outside, Samuel turned to her. "I had a great time tonight, Aria. I'd love to see you again. Maybe dinner next week?" Aria bit her lip, hesitating. She'd sworn off dating after her last disastrous relationship, but there was something about Samuel that made her want to take a chance. "I'd like that," she finally replied with a shy smile. Over the next few weeks, Aria and Samuel went on several dates. He took her to quirky restaurants, art galleries, even rock climbing, always full of surprises. Aria found herself looking forward to their time together, butterflies in her stomach whenever she saw him. One evening, they were strolling through a park after dinner, when Samuel suddenly stopped and turned to face her. "Aria, there's something I need to tell you," he said seriously. Aria's heart sank. Here it comes, she thought, the other shoe dropping. "I know we haven't known each other that long, but I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet someone like you. You're smart, funny, kind. I think I'm falling in love with you." Aria stared at him in shock. Of all the things she'd been expecting, that wasn't it. "Samuel, She trailed off, at a loss for words. He cupped her face gently. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know how I feel." Then he leaned in and kissed her softly. Aria melted into the kiss, her mind spinning. When they finally broke apart, she gazed up at him. "I think I'm falling for you too," she whispered. From that moment on, Aria and Samuel were inseparable. Months flew by in a whirlwind of romantic dates, cozy nights in, and adventures around the city. Aria had never been happier. But as their one-year anniversary approached, doubts began to creep in. Things were going so perfectly, almost too perfectly. In Aria's experience, that usually meant disaster was just around the corner. She tried to push the negative thoughts aside, but they persisted. The night before their anniversary, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally giving up, she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Samuel. She padded to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of wine, hoping to calm her nerves. As she sipped, she noticed Samuel's phone on the counter, the screen lighting up with a new message. Aria knew she shouldn't look. She trusted Samuel completely. And yet, her hand seemed to move of its own accord, picking up the phone. The message was from a woman named Olivia. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget the ring." Aria's blood ran cold. A ring? Tomorrow? Her mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. Was Samuel planning to propose? Or was this message evidence of something more sinister? She set the phone down with trembling hands, feeling sick. What should she do? Confront Samuel? Pretend she never saw it? Before she could decide, she heard footsteps behind her. "Aria? What are you doing up?" Samuel asked sleepily. She whirled around, guilt and fear written all over her face. Samuel's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. Aria standing by the counter, his phone in front of her, an empty wine glass in her hand. "Were you going through my phone?" he asked incredulously. I didn't mean to," Aria stammered. "A message popped up and Samuel, who's Olivia?" Samuel's face went pale. "You saw that?" Aria nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Are you cheating on me?" "What? No, of course not," Samuel exclaimed. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "This isn't how I wanted to do this." "Do what?" Aria asked warily. Samuel sighed heavily. "I guess there's no point in trying to keep it a secret now." He walked over to a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Aria's heart pounded as he got down on one knee in front of her. "Aria, I love you more than I ever thought possible. You make me happier than I've ever been. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Aria gasped, her mind reeling. "But the message, Olivia, is my sister," Samuel explained. "She was helping me plan the proposal for tomorrow. I wanted it to be a surprise." Relief and joy washed over Aria. She launched herself into Samuel's arms, nearly knocking him over. Yes, I'll marry you," she cried, peppering his face with kisses. Samuel laughed and slipped the ring onto her finger. "I love you, Aria. No more doubts, okay? You're stuck with me now." Aria gazed at the ring sparkling on her hand, then back at Samuel's adoring face. "I wouldn't have it any other way," she said softly, before pulling him in for a passionate kiss. The next year was a whirlwind of wedding planning. Aria threw herself into every detail, determined to make their day perfect. Samuel was happy to let her take the lead, pitching in wherever she needed him. As the big day approached, Aria found herself growing more and more anxious. What if something went wrong? What if she tripped walking down the aisle? What if she forgot her vows? The night before the wedding, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally giving up, she slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen for some tea. To her surprise, she found Samuel already there, nursing a cup of coffee. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, sliding onto the stool next to him. He shook his head ruefully. "Too excited. Or nervous. Maybe both." Aria leaned her head on his shoulder. "I know what you mean. I keep worrying about all the things that could go wrong tomorrow." Samuel wrapped an arm around her. "The only thing that matters is that at the end of the day we'll be married. Everything else is just details." Aria smiled, feeling some of her anxiety melt away. "When did you get so wise?" "Must be all those fortune cookies I've been eating," he quipped, making her laugh. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying each other's presence. Finally, Samuel spoke again. "You know, we could always elope. Vegas is just a short flight away." Aria's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Samuel shrugged. "Why not? We could be married by this time tomorrow. No stress, no fuss. Just us." For a moment, Aria was tempted. But then she thought of all the work they'd put into planning their perfect day, all their friends and family who were excited to celebrate with them. She shook her head. As romantic as that sounds, I think we'd regret it. Besides, I really want to see you in that tux, she added with a wink. Samuel chuckled. Fair enough, it was just a thought. Aria kissed him softly. Ask me again on our 25th anniversary. Maybe I'll say yes then. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for an outdoor wedding. Aria stood in front of the mirror in her dressing room, hardly able to believe the day had finally arrived. Her dress was everything she'd dreamed of, a flowing white gown that made her feel like a princess. There was a knock at the door, and Zoe poked her head in. You ready, bride-to-be? It's almost time. Aria took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress. As ready as I'll ever be. As she walked down the aisle, arm in arm with her father, all of Aria's nerves melted away. She locked eyes with Samuel waiting for her at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tux. The love shining in his eyes took her breath away. The ceremony passed in a blur. Before she knew it, they were exchanging rings and the officiant was pronouncing them husband and wife. Samuel pulled her in for a kiss as their guests cheered, and Aria felt like her heart might burst with happiness. The reception was a joyous celebration, full of laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. As the night wore on, Samuel pulled Aria aside for a moment of quiet. How are you feeling, Mrs. Taylor? He asked, a goofy grin on his face. Aria beamed up at him. Like the luckiest woman in the world, Mr. Taylor. He wrapped his arms around her waist. I was thinking, maybe we should take that trip to Vegas after all, for our honeymoon. Aria laughed. I thought you'd never ask. 2 weeks later, they were strolling hand in hand down the Las Vegas Strip, taking in the lights and excitement. They'd spent their days exploring the city, seeing shows, and even trying their luck at the casinos, with mixed results. As they passed one of the many wedding chapels lining the street, Samuel suddenly stopped. What do you say we renew our vows? He asked with a mischievous grin. Go for the full Vegas experience? Aria giggled. Why not, but only if Elvis officiates. 20 minutes later, they were standing in front of a surprisingly convincing Elvis impersonator, reciting their vows for the second time in as many weeks. It was silly and over the top and absolutely perfect. As Elvis pronounced them husband and wife, again, Aria gazed up at Samuel, overcome with love. How had she gotten so lucky? What are you thinking? Samuel asked softly as they slow danced to Can't Help Falling in Love after the ceremony. Just that I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, Aria replied, even if it means renewing our vows in cheesy Vegas chapels every anniversary. Samuel chuckled. Deal, although maybe we can mix it up sometimes. How do you feel about underwater weddings? Aria laughed and pulled him in for a kiss. Whatever the future held, she knew that as long as they were together, it would be an adventure. Years passed, and Aria and Samuel's love only grew stronger. They faced challenges together. Job changes, family losses, health scares, but through it all, they were each other's rock. On their 5th anniversary, they welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Lily. Parenthood brought new joys and challenges, but they tackled it as a team. As Lily grew, so did their family. A son, Max, joined them 2 years later. Their house was filled with laughter, chaos, and more love than Aria had ever thought possible. Before they knew it, they were celebrating their 10th anniversary. They managed to sneak away for a weekend, leaving the kids with Aria's parents. As they sat on the beach watching the sunset, Samuel turned to Aria with a soft smile. Can you believe it's been 10 years? He asked, squeezing her hand. Aria shook her head in wonder. It feels like just yesterday we were meeting at that club, and also like we've been together forever. Samuel nodded in agreement. You know, that night we met, I had almost skipped the club entirely. I was tired from work and not really in the mood to go out, but something told me I should go anyway. I'm so glad you did, Aria said softly. Me too, Samuel replied, pulling her close. Best decision I ever made. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, Aria thought back over the past decade. There had been ups and downs, moments of doubt and moments of pure bliss, but through it all, their love had remained constant, a steady anchor in the chaos of life. She turned to Samuel, overcome with emotion. I love you, she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me every day." Samuel's eyes shone with unshed tears as he leaned in to kiss her tenderly. "I love you too," he murmured against her lips, "always and forever." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Aria knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Whatever the future held, she and Samuel would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. And really, what more could anyone ask for? As the years passed, Aria and Samuel's love only deepened and matured. They faced life's challenges together: career changes, family losses, health scares. But through it all, they remained each other's rock and safe harbor. On their 15th anniversary, they decided to renew their vows. This time, instead of a lavish wedding or cheesy Vegas chapel, they opted for an intimate ceremony on a beautiful beach at sunset. Surrounded by their children and closest friends, they reaffirmed their commitment to each other. "Aria," Samuel began, his voice thick with emotion, "15 years ago, I promised to love you for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I had no idea then just how much those vows would be tested. But standing here today, I can say without a doubt that loving you has been the greatest joy and privilege of my life. You've seen me at my best and my worst, and you've loved me through it all. I vow to continue loving you fiercely and completely for all the days of my life." Aria wiped away tears as she responded, "Samuel, you are my best friend, my soulmate, and the love of my life. These past 15 years have been an incredible journey, filled with more love and happiness than I ever thought possible. You've supported my dreams, comforted me in my darkest moments, and made me laugh every single day. I promise to continue choosing you and our love day after day, year after year, for the rest of our lives." As they sealed their renewed vows with a kiss, Aria felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She thought back to that night in the club when they first met, marveling at how a chance encounter had led to this beautiful life they'd built together. Their 20th anniversary found them embarking on a new adventure. With their children grown and starting their own lives, Aria and Samuel decided to sell their house and travel the world. They'd always dreamed of seeing far-off places together, and now they finally had the chance. From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the serene beaches of Bali, the historic sights of Rome to the breathtaking landscapes of New Zealand, they explored the world hand in hand. Each new experience brought them closer together, reigniting the spark of excitement and discovery in their relationship. One evening, as they sat on a balcony overlooking the glittering lights of Paris, Samuel turned to Aria with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Remember when I suggested we elope to Vegas on our wedding night?" Aria laughed, the sound as musical to Samuel's ears as it had been 2 decades ago. "How could I forget? You were so nervous about the wedding." "Well," Samuel said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box, "I was thinking, maybe it's time for that Vegas wedding after all." Aria's eyes widened as he opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire ring. "Samuel, what are you saying?" He grinned, looking boyish despite the silver threading through his hair. "I'm saying let's get married again, in Vegas this time, just like we joked about all those years ago. What do you say, Mrs. Taylor? Want to be my bride for the 3rd time?" Laughing through happy tears, Aria nodded. "Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes, I'll marry you again." 2 weeks later, they stood in a kitschy Vegas chapel, being pronounced husband and wife by an Elvis impersonator. As they shared a kiss, both giggling like teenagers, Aria marveled at how their love had only grown stronger with time. Their 25th anniversary was a more subdued affair. They'd settled into a cozy cottage by the sea, enjoying the quiet rhythms of coastal life. Their children and grandchildren visited often, filling the house with laughter and love. One lazy Sunday morning, as they sat on the porch watching the waves roll in, Samuel reached for Aria's hand. "You know, after all these years, I still wake up every morning amazed that I get to spend my life with you." Aria squeezed his hand, her heart full. "I feel the same way. We've been through so much together, but I wouldn't change a single moment." As they sat there, content in each other's company, Aria reflected on their journey. From that first electric meeting in the club to their impromptu Vegas wedding, Through the joys of parenthood and the challenges of life, their love had been a constant, ever-evolving force. She thought about all the little moments that had brought them to this point. The late-night conversations, the inside jokes, the quiet acts of love and support. It wasn't always easy, and it certainly wasn't perfect, but it was real and deep and lasting. Looking at Samuel, his face lined with the years they'd shared, Aria felt a rush of love so powerful it almost took her breath away. This was what true love looked like, not the fairy tale romance of movies, but something far more profound. A partnership of equals, a friendship that had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs, a love that had grown and changed and deepened with each passing year. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Aria leaned her head on Samuel's shoulder. "I love you," she murmured. Samuel pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I love you too, always and forever." And in that moment, with the sound of the waves and the warmth of Samuel's hand in hers, Aria knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. After all, what more could anyone ask for than a love that only grows stronger with time?